You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcast, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, ProLeftPod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for October 16th, 2020. It's not safe for work.
Coming to you live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we wish everyone a happy presidential debate day, because on this date, in 1858, was the seventh and final debate between Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas, which was held in Alton, Illinois. It's the Professional Left with Driftglass and Bluegal.
History for you. No extra charge.
Yeah, throw in a little stuff. It's local. You know, Lincoln is buried near here. Everything's named after him. And at least one massive fundraising operation has stolen his name. So we thought we'd just get in our two licks as we proceed into the middle of November. Reminding everyone that if you haven't voted yet, you better be dead or you can't vote in your state, because other than that, you don't have any goddamn excuse
if you
for
can't vote early, or you have a plan to vote next week, we understand. But please make a plan to vote. Right. And according to whatever the rules of your area are, I certainly expect that our listeners are getting ready to vote. Yeah. You know, those that are in the United States and have the right to vote are going to vote. So
now, if you'd like an example of what not to do, I would urge you to take a lesson from Maryland's Republican governor and current Never Trump hero, Larry Hogan, who bravely cast a vote for Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan? He wrote in Ronald Reagan.
He wrote in Ronald Reagan because he's a pussy. Let's face it. I can't. My hand will burst into flames if I vote for a Democrat. This is, the most revered example of never Trump, good guy. Maybe we can rebuild the party on this basis.
because Reagan was such a great president.
Yeah. Let's remind everyone, we're not in the fourth year of the Trump administration. We are in the 40th year of the Reagan Revolution.
That's right.
And
it's about to end.
About to end.
We hope.
So welcome, everyone.
I was impressed. There was a tweet today from someone who did not recognize, who asked the question, will you ever forgive the Republican Party for the past year?
I saw that too.
Did you? And did you see all of the replies that said 40 years?
40 years. What are you talking about?
Oh, wow. And then he replied, I didn't realize I was going to get 5,000 responses to this. And it's somewhere between 1 and 40 years.
Yep.
They were not going to forgive the Republican Party.
No. And deeper into this podcast from October 16th, we will be getting into you can hear the engines of the Never Trump, the Trump off machine. You can hear them firing up.
The lifeboat builders are in full-on overtime. Absolutely.
I think we should lead off. That's a nice segue to this week. We would like to honor the memories of the words should and must. They were really
as in
fine.
Democrats should, right?
Yeah, or we should, or we must, or Congress must, or the Senate must, or Republicans must. None of which ever happens. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fish shaking on Twitter, especially on the social side at Donald Trump and at Republicans about what they shouldn't do and how dare you, and don't you realize? Like, of course they realize. I recognize there's a certain cathartic value into pissing into the abyss, but really, if that's your only shtick, if you're on Twitter 24/7, inveighing against people who absolutely are not going to do what you tell them to do, it gets a little boring after a while.
All week, I've been talking about no one but Sheldon Whitehouse. Right. I mean, I'm so impressed with him. Mm-hmm. And I think he has the right approach, which is, look, Republican senators, just because you can, if that's your rationale, it's because we can do it, that we're going to do it. Don't expect any credibility when we say we're going to do things because we can.
Well,
because when the shoe's on the other foot, the pressure that the Democrats are going to be under from me to fix this, and I mean all of it, eliminate the Republicans' ability to ever win a national election ever again.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking. Structural change that will prevent them from ever winning a national election ever again. That's what I want. That's what I'm going to be pushing for.
I'm going to be pushing for that too. I am less sanguine about our short-term chance for that.
Oh no, I predicted on Twitter today that January 30th, Michelle Malkin will have a seat on Meet the Press.
Yeah,
and she will be screaming, "Well, Donald Trump's not president anymore."
Yeah,
just like she did with George W. Bush.
Well, and to succeed, and I'm not talking to you. I'm not even talking to our listeners who are all very smart people. Don't need me to tell them this, but to succeed, we have to understand the machine that kicks into gear whenever there's a change of administration. Who runs it, why it's run, who gets paid for it, and where it's headed, and who's behind the wheel.
And you can see a hint of what is coming with this whole bullshit questioning about stacking the court.
Right.
Where a nominee for the Supreme Court spends 3 days refusing to answer a single question. And the fact that Joe Biden will not make a firm commitment to whether or not he's going to add Supreme Court seats. And it is framed as stack the court.
Right.
When the only person stacking the court in the past 20 years has been Mitch McConnell.
Right.
And Nancy Pelosi was absolutely right with Wolf Blitzer. We're going to get into all this. I'm rushing way ahead in our
That's okay.
notes.
That's all right.
But the Republican position framing that comes from the mainstream media is constant.
It is. And that's why when I see allies of mine who are dear people saying, look, don't bust chops of Republicans who have been shit assholes until 5 minutes ago, but are now temporarily willing to say Donald Trump is a problem, but still believe the Republican Party can be saved. We need all of our allies. After the election, that's when we'll get them out of here. That's when we'll chase them out. And my question is always, and has never been answered, how do you plan to do that?
Right.
You're not the editor of the New York Times. You don't own NBC. The people who do those things, people who actually have the power to frame the public debate, aren't us, guys. They're the people who own the corporate media and set the agenda. And the people who will be at the table come November 20th ain't going to be those of us who say, okay, thanks for your help. Now get the fuck out of here. The people who are going to be there will be the people that we enabled by saying it doesn't matter because they're our allies now. And they will sit there at the table having raked in $120, $130, $140 million from liberals and say, look, the most credible people at this table are Charlie Sykes, Steve Schmidt, and Rick Wilson. We raise more money than God. Look at all these liberals who endorse us. We should have a say in how the agenda gets set. And I think we can all agree that the extremes on both sides are the real problem, Bluegal.
Well, I want to see what happens. They've made a commitment to flipping the Senate in 2022. And if they continue on that path and have a whole bunch of Democratic senators that owe their seats to ads running in state elections. I mean, I'm watching them carefully. I know you are too.
I am. And I'm perfectly willing to be wrong in this one thing for the first time in 15 years. Right. So that's fine.
And Rick Wilson, I believe, may be saying this is my swan song so that I can look at my grandchildren. And if he's going to retire after 2022 and shut up, which I don't see happening. But if that's what he's going to do, hey, thank you for your service. At the end of your career, you went right. I appreciate it. But right now, you're right. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them in terms of allowing them into any Democratic circle to make decisions. And they are entertainment.
Right. And that's I'm willing to concede, look, I might be wrong. I might be an asshole who's been burned 62 times already by Republican promises that just got broken, and a bunch of liberals who were always shocked the Republicans lied. Oh my God, Republicans lied. If you look at Rick Wilson's record prior to 2016, he was a complete right-wing asshole, racist troll, and was on Twitter all the time, and on Twitter trashing Joe Biden and talking about Hillary Clinton doesn't give a shit about dead soldiers and and flying a Confederate flag on his boat, all of which has been flushed down the memory hole. And my problem is it's always accountability yesterday and accountability tomorrow, but never accountability today.
Yeah.
In the sweet by and by, we'll level everything up, and this will all be taken care of. That has never fucking happened in the history of Republican politics. Ever. Yeah. The Republicans, the way we got here in the first place is because Republicans never get held responsible for the shit they do. And I think whether I'm right or wrong about the Never Trumpers or Lincoln Project, I'm happy to be wrong. I'd be happy if they all converted. But if I'm right, what exactly, I'm asking Anna Marie Cox and their allies in the media who will always rise to their defense. What exactly do you plan to do to rid us of them once you are done with them? There's an old saying about you can pay the Dan Geld, but you can't get rid of the Dane. You can bribe them out long enough, but eventually they're going to stick around and hang on to the power they've already gotten. And I don't see them giving that up. The only person I see in the entire mix who will say flat out the Republican Party going back 40 years has been a fucking problem, and I was part of it, was Stuart Stevens. Every one of them has, all the others have a fucking alibi. I've said this before. Michael Steele swears that all the bigots left when he showed up and all the bigots came back when he left, which he knows is a lie. And et cetera, et cetera. I don't need to repeat it all. But these people lie all the time about their past and get really unhappy, really pissed off when you bring it up. And I don't know of any person who's actually genuinely sorry for what they've done who reacts that way.
Nope. And they are not sorry for what they did.
At all.
And Rick Wilson in particular says he's not sorry. So hey, Driftglass, let's do a Bible bitch.
Bible bitch.
That's not scriptural.
I think a Bible bitch is most appropriate, Bluegal. I'm just going to sit back, put my feet up, and listen to Psalm 62 and 64. How's that?
Yeah, Psalm 62 and 64. And just so all the Bible scholars in the audience know, I'm mixing up a little bit my translations. I'm using a little bit from the Message and then a little bit from the King James Version because I think it's more poetic.
Got a
and
question.
Then switching back and forth. Yeah.
Got a question. What the hell's wrong with Psalm 63, Bluegal? Huh?
You know, I could tell you that, but then I'd have to look it up.
Proceed.
And we don't have time for that right now.
No, we got to go. We got to go.
All right, Psalm 62 and a little bit from Psalm 64. And just this relates again to Sheldon Whitehouse and the Koch brothers and what's happening to our courts. I'm just going to say that. How long will you run with the bullies? There's nothing to you, any of you. Rotten floorboards, worm-eaten rafters, anthills plotting to bring down mountains. Far gone in make-believe, you talk a good line, but every blessing breathes a curse. God has spoken once, twice have I heard this, that power belongeth unto God. Listen and help, O God, I'm reduced to a whine and a whimper, obsessed with feelings of doomsday. Don't let them find me, the conspirators out to get me. They keep fit doing calisthenics of evil purpose. They keep lists of the traps they've secretly set. They say to each other, no one can catch us. No one can detect our perfect crime. The detective detects the mystery in the dark of the cellar heart. But God shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly shall they be wounded. Everyone sees it. God's work is the talk of the town. And I think we've seen a little bit of sunlight this week on what is going on with the corruption of the courts with money.
Yeah.
And particularly, I hate to be just impressed with numbers in this regard, but Sheldon Whitehouse talking about the guy who wrote 2 $17 million checks to get the court he wanted.
Right. Dark money. And the organizations that are there merely to do identity scrubbing of billionaires. And then you hear about billionaires that have more money than God, literally, and are hiding it from the tax man. Like, you've got $14 billion and you decided to stash $2 billion in some illegal overseas, hidey hole. It's a sickness. Well, it's the opposite, but with the same effect of the Pelican Brief.
Yeah.
Where, rich crackpot needs to murder 2 Supreme Court justices to get his way. In this case, it's rich crackpots need to buy the courts by buying Mitch McConnell and buying the Republican Congress to get the judges they want. And they did. And the reason that there were 100 empty seats after Barack Obama left office in the lower courts was not because he didn't want to fill them. It's because Mitch McConnell stood on the throat of the nomination process and says, not one more inch, not another. I'm holding all these seats open, and then I'm going to give them away.
For the Heritage Foundation, right.
But I'm going to give them away like Mardi Gras beads to people who are unqualified, who ABA have been rated unqualified, have criminal records, who lie under oath. And it's rotting.
Who don't know what's in the First Amendment to the Constitution, like Amy Coney Barrett. Al Franken was on in a rather lackluster interview, but I listened to it. It was with Brian Williams this week. But there was one point at which he said, you need to understand how far back this goes. They find these people in law school to put on the court.
Yes, they do. They breed them.
And they breed them, and they give them funding for law school. They find clerkships for them. They put them through, all of the processes all the way up their career. They are owned by the Heritage Foundation.
It's the firm.
It's the firm.
It really is.
And there is the reason they do that is they were burned so badly with David Souter that he surprised them and was a progressive all of a sudden once he had a lifetime appointment.
Right.
And Al Franken said, there are no more David Souters.
No.
They know they're going to get 100%. And Sheldon Whitehouse said, 80 cases. When there are 80 cases representing these folks who do the dark money stuff, and 80 times they win in court, that's corruption.
Yeah.
They have bought those decisions, and they're getting them.
Well, and they found out that the best way to get, fresh produce is to own the farm.
Right, exactly. Grow it from seed.
Grow it from seed. And that's what they did with Paul Ryan. I mean, the reason they got Paul Ryan in there with his, dead-eyed, this is Mitt Romney's vice presidential candidate, Paul Ryan, who put through a number of budgets with big asterisks with money that didn't exist, who wanted to cut social programs, who was just a Randite, cut it all, starve it all zombie, is because they got him young.
Yeah.
They bought his ass when he was, still in short pants. This is what they think long term in this way.
Yeah. It's a 40-year plan, like you said. Yeah.
And we are living in the fruits of their long-term labor. This is the end of the Reagan Revolution. This is what all of your Republican friends gloried in. And there's a quote, I'm not going to get it right, from Atlas Shrugged, from John Galt during the long, tendentious, awful, boring speech that he gives. There's a paragraph in it why are you looking around you in horror? This is not the product of your sins. This is the product of your virtues. This is the world you made.
You created this.
Steve Schmidt, this is the world you made. You spent your entire fucking adult life to make this thing happen. Now that it's here, why are you reacting like, oh my God, I never suspected. No one ever told me my party was full of Republicans. And
I love what you said to Steve Schmidt on Twitter. I know he probably didn't read it because he's blue check, et cetera.
Yeah.
But Sarah Palin raised her hand I'm trying to be nice, raised her hand and said, if Hunter Biden's last name was Trump, we'd see a different story. It's like
Steve.
Everyone reminded her the Trump boys aren't allowed to have a charity in New York anymore because they stole from their own charities. But
I told Steve Schmidt on Twitter.
Go ahead.
Steve, come get your girl.
Come get your girl.
Yeah. Well, let's not talk about, and I expected him to tear off his headphones and storm off of our podcast and say a lot of nasty words because that's how he reacts to anyone mentioning the past. Again, innocent people don't behave this way. Repentant people do not behave this way. People who are deeply, deeply guilty and are hoping that they continue to get away with it long enough to get away with the money, that's how they behave. Yeah. But innocent people don't behave this way. Speaking of innocent people who don't behave this way, I don't know, you all out there might remember the West Wing episode where
everybody take a drink.
Everybody take a large drink. First of all, I watched all the West Wing episodes. I remember half of them. It was fiction. It was gauzy.
I didn't watch the West Wing because it was porn for liberals during the Bush administration, and I wanted to stay clear. Yes.
It was. and there's a bit where President Bartlett is running against Governor Ritchie, who's clearly George Bush. Squinty-eyed from Texas, doesn't have a lot of time for you folks.
Played by James Brolin.
Played by James Brolin, and well played by James Brolin. But it's clear that this is the rematch that everybody wants, and this time we win. And Bartlett is doing a whole bunch of commercials for himself and doing a whole bunch of interviews and accidentally insults Governor Ritchie's intelligence during the one time when the camera was on, when he was just bullshitting. And it was clear that it was a planned leak. It was intentional to get the word out without getting the word out. So this week, audio of everyone's favorite Republican hero, Ben Sasse, talking sassy about Donald Trump, accidentally leaked to the press.
Yeah.
And all that clatter and clamor you hear in the background is the sound of an armada of lifeboats being assembled out of the planks of the Cathedral of St. Ronald Reagan.
I found it really interesting that the person that got the audio was at the Mooney Times, too.
Yeah. Well, this is, this is them. This is Ben Sasse going shit. And Digby Parton, who we love and adore beyond all dispute, Digby, in whose honor was coined the phrase, what Digby said during the darkest days of the Bush administration, because she spoke for so many of us, has an article in Salon this week. And I'd like to read from it just a little bit because the ending kind of disturbs me. She gets all the stuff right, as she always does. The headline is, "Don't let Trump's GOP enablers off the hook. Denouncing him now is taking the easy way out. A wave of Republicans like Ben Sasse will claim they never supported Trump. Don't let them get away with it." And she says Sasse is very likely running for president in 2024 and trying to sell the idea that he was never on the Trump train. So there's no reason to blame him for anything that went wrong, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The New York Times calls Sasse's enthusiastic embrace of radical power, in contrast to his stated distaste for Trump, a trade-off. It is not. It's called rank opportunism, and he's not going to be the only Republican running from his own corruption. Wolf Blitzer played the audio in front of venerable journalist Bob Woodward, who opined, "He got caught telling the truth. I know that there are other Republican senators who feel exactly the same way. They have not yet been caught. And more catastrophically, they won't share with the public their private conclusions," which is all bullshit. They're all looking for a way off. This is exactly, by the way, for you history nut buffs out there, exactly what happened during the reign of Tom DeLay. Tom DeLay could cut your balls off. So everyone was trying to figure out just the right time to jump off the Tom DeLay train.
Before his corruption caught up with it.
Right. Before his corruption took them all down. If they got off too soon, he would destroy them. If he got off too late, they'd be morphed into him. So they had to find just the right moment to discover their conscience and do the right thing. And that's what all the Republicans are doing right now. They're trying to find just the right moment, the ones who are
and make it an accidental leak, too. Yeah.
And Diggy conclude, I suspect we'll be hearing a lot of them sharing that private conversation with the public if Trump loses. Sasse is just getting out in front, and it is too much, and it is much too late. Now, the ending, however, is problematic because it gets back to those words that we said we have to bury now. Should and must. Digby concludes, they must never be allowed to forget that they were eager collaborators in the most corrupt, incompetent, and dangerous administration in American history.
You mean the Bush administration, right? Yeah. Because they were all in it then.
Yeah, to quote Depeche Mode, isn't never again what we swore the time before. So let's learn from history. Let's actually learn a lesson. How in the world was the gang of Republicans who impeached Clinton ever allowed to escape? And how were the Bush regime war criminals able to walk away from the rubble they left behind without a scratch? And how were Republicans allowed to regroup unscathed during the Obama years as the fake Tea Party? All of this happened because it was never the right time to hold them accountable. And it was always, let's look to the future. Let's forget the past. The people who tell you that do not have your best interests at heart.
Right.
The people who want to look past, who want to get on with it, who want to move together. And I'm including Joe Biden in this.
I am including Joe Biden in this. I understand he wants to be president of all the American people.
And he will be. Constitutionally, he will be.
Particularly, I do feel for...
Di-fi?
No, I was about to say I feel for people who do vote for Biden this time, but I actually don't. Yeah. If you voted for Trump in 2016, you did so out of bad motives.
Right.
And out of a disrespect for democracy and government. And you need to have that ground into you that you should not be allowed to be a part of this conversation.
No.
People who have so much disregard for government that you're willing to put Donald Trump in front of the government because it makes you feel good, or you didn't want to take responsibility for Hillary Clinton administration, or whatever. You clearly are missing something in your mental makeup that does not serve our country.
Well, what happened in the good old days when wandering the wilderness for 40 years was the standard sentence for fucking up really bad? You have to go into the wilderness, Republicans, and I'm talking about the entire Lincoln Project. You have to go away now. You have to go far away. And I'm committing the same sin I believe I'm chiding others for doing. There's no enforcement mechanism that will make them do this, because whatever happens, however badly things go, at the end of the day, if Joe Biden wins and is inaugurated and there's little bloodshed or no bloodshed, there'll still be 60 million racist assholes out there waiting for the Messiah.
Right.
And those people will be a rich target-rich environment for advertisers, con men, Both-Siderists, anyone who's willing to pay for.
And that's why I'm predicting both a religious revival and a return to country music, like basic country music.
Yeah, I hope you're right. However,
because they'll need to take a break from politics, because both sides are just terrible. I can't discuss it anymore.
Well, that's the thing.
And we have a friend who discussed this with us this week.
Yes.
I'm not going to give any details except to say that she was talking about a coworker who had survived COVID.
Right.
And they disagree about politics, and they usually don't discuss politics. But this woman who had survived COVID said that Trump taking the mask off was the last straw. And, not babies in cages, not destroying the environment, not grabbing by the pussy, none of that. No, taking the mask off, because her personal experience, we've talked about this before, her personal experience with COVID was so serious. She knows it's real. She knows it's not a hoax.
Right.
And for him, shedding virus and taking off the mask like he's Superman, that was the last straw for her.
Right.
And so what was her response? I wish there was a third party to vote for, and I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to vote this time.
I wish there was a third party. Oh, I can't and fine, don't vote. You know what? If you could extend that another 20 years, that'd be great. That'd be just great. But people like that, and there are tens of millions of them out there, if you look at them from a corporate media standpoint, they are customers, potential customers. And this is
why the MyPillow guy is going around doing religious revivals now. Because they're suckers, and he knows it, and they're his audience, and he can, if he can't get them with Trump, he'll get them with Jesus.
Right. Well, and they're going to be looking for the same thing that Bush supporters like Steve Schmidt and Rick Wilson and all the rest of these assholes and David Frum, et cetera, were looking for after the Bush administration collapsed. They're going to be looking for an excuse. They're going to be looking for a reason. And they're going to be looking for.
Well, George Bush, whatever you think of him, Driftglass.
Yeah. Well, that's the Nicole Wallace joke. My former boss, whatever you think of him. Well, we think he's a monster. That's what we think. We think people who supported him and knew better shouldn't ever be allowed anywhere near television cameras or opinioning ever. But that isn't our decision, because we're not corporate people. We don't run networks. But that whole process is starting already. It's gearing up already. So the same marketplace.
You only have to watch Morning Joe for 5 minutes to see it. They're talking about Trumpism, folks.
Right. It's not Republicanism. It's
Trumpism. Yep.
And the whole market pressure to give these fucking monsters, these assholes, your friends and neighbors who voted Trump with their eyes wide open and have been celebrating him ever since, who are now getting a little bit icky, are the same people who voted for Bush and Cheney twice. And they're going to be looking for a way to pretend that they're not to blame. They were either duped, or they were lied to, or of course Hillary was worse, or whatever. They're looking for a way out of accountability. And the marketplace, I'm a capitalist in this regard, the marketplace will provide. The marketplace will come up with some mechanism by which they do not have to pay any price for anything. And that marketplace will profit the Lincoln Project. It'll profit ABC, CBS, and NBC. It'll profit Fox. It'll profit Breitbart. It'll profit QAnon. A lot of people are going to make a lot of money handing out indulgences. That's a good old Catholic word.
Yes, it is.
And the people who are trying to get between the sinners and their absolution are the people who are going to make the most money, people who will declare themselves to be the fair arbiter of these things. And that's why getting liberals at the table is important, and why getting expatriate Republicans away from the table is vital. And that's not going to happen. The people who will be arbitrating absolution will be Steve Schmidt and Joe Scarborough and their friends.
Driftglass, I'm going to ask you a question, and this isn't in our notes. It just came to me as you were talking that what we're asking of Republicans in terms of you've been wrong, you've made these mistakes, and you need to atone for them.
Right.
And you need to sit back and let the people who were right and victimized take the lead.
Yes.
Is exactly the same message that white people are being told about the Black Lives Matter movement.
Agree 100%.
Okay.
100% agree. And
so we white people, in terms of Black Lives Matter, in terms of civil rights and racial justice, we need to fight alongside our Black compatriots, but they take the lead.
Yes, absolutely.
And our responsibility is to undo white supremacy wherever we see it.
That's correct. I couldn't agree more. It is high time for a completely different group of people to run this country. I think women and African Americans, especially Black women, should be running this country.
Yeah.
Those people have enormous skills that this country actually needs at this point. And I think that the people who've been shut out of politics for a long time are the very people who can be the most astute observers of what's actually wrong with this country and can fix it. Now, the people who shouldn't be in the spotlight are people like Mitt Romney.
We could do a 3-hour podcast on Mitt Romney, folks.
Yeah, we're going to do a 30-second podcast because everybody knows about Mitt Romney, who this week elevated Keith Olbermann to the status of 4th most powerful human in America, and set a real new gold standard for both-siderist cowardice.
He really did.
Mind you, this is the guy who your friends on the Never Trump side this is their savior. This is the only honorable man in the Republican Party who just cannot stop both-siderists for a minute. As I've said before, unless you can show me the gun that someone put to your head and made you listen to Rush Limbaugh for 25 years, you did this to yourself. This is your fault. You are to blame for this. And the mad scramble with which they are desperate to avoid accountability is not made any better when Mitt Romney says in a press release, I'm going to quote from it a little bit, "I've stayed quiet about the approach of the election, but I'm troubled by our politics as it has moved away from the spirited debate to a vile, vituperative, hate-filled morass that is unbecoming of any free nation, let alone the birthplace of modern democracy." Then he says Donald Trump did a bunch of shit, but also Nancy Pelosi did a bunch of shit, and Keith Olbermann did a bunch of shit. Everybody's doing bad stuff. And Rabid attacks Kindle, the conspiracy mongers and the haters who take the small and predictable step from intemperate word to dangerous action. The world is watching. So it really is a Jeremiad against both sides being awful. And on one side, you have the President of the United States with the nuclear codes. On the other side, you have Keith Olbermann, who has a YouTube channel. And who, by the way, is absolutely accurate when he calls Donald Trump a terrorist. And so that is the best that the last man of conscience, the last honest man,
the guy who voted to remove Trump from office, the one Republican who did it,
that's the
all
best
of a sudden runs back to, both sides. Without mentioning Trump, I believe, except that Keith Olbermann called him a terrorist.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just as irresponsible and just as awful. No, again, to steal from Keith Olbermann, who's stealing from us, blaming people who are the firemen in an arson situation, saying they're equally to blame, they share blame with the arsonists, is the lowest kind of cowardice. And Mitt Romney is a coward. He's a coward. I don't know what people have on him. I heard an awful lot of speculation from Keith Olbermann about who's being blackmailed in the Republican Party, because this complete, first of all, that they tried it with Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
And it didn't work.
Just said, fine, I'll get a divorce and give her half my money instead of giving anything to you.
Yes. Who has all the FU money in the world.
And Keith Olbermann pointed out that it's never the first guy that you blackmail that turns you down, right? Yeah. Right. And it's pretty obvious that Lindsey Graham's blackmailed.
being blackmailed. It's pretty obvious that a whole bunch of people on the right are being blackmailed or being induced or coerced by some force that we will probably never hear about or only hear about after the courts open the books on these people, if that ever happens. But what is clear is that Mitt Romney is a coward. He can't just come out and say the problem with this country is my party. Because then he'd have to sit there and go, oh, yeah, I made Paul Ryan a national figure. Oh, yeah, I did this. He can't do that. I don't care how noble a Mormon leader he is. And I believe in my heart he's an honorable leader of his church, an elder in his church. I do believe that. But he is, in politics and in civic responsibility, a coward. Because he can't call out the real problem without dragging in some completely unrelated side issue to balance it out, because balance is important. And the reason balance is important is because it's still the goddamn state religion of the Beltway media. It is the first place they want to go. The Beltway media is so desperate to be able to get back to hating both sides and asking Democrats about deficits and wondering why Obama won't lead. This is the only language they understand and have been deprived of it for 3 years. So Katie Couric, after hearing Ben Sasse leaking his thing, was moved to ask the world via Twitter, is this the reconstitution of the GOP?
So soon, Katie.
Yeah. And I have an answer for you, Katie, but I can't say it on this podcast because I said I wouldn't swear anymore. But moving on, this was the week when NBC completely shit the bed. See, I swore again. By rewarding Donald Trump for bailing on the presidential debates with an hour of free airtime, during which he thoroughly humiliated himself, and which he said in advance. First of all, he insulted NBC, which frankly is my job, and insulted Chuck Todd, which again is my job, and call them everything but a child of God, which is my job, but also said openly, oh, well, who cares? Because it's an hour of free TV. And Chuck Todd went on public radio, Boston Public Radio, the next day and was asked about, because they got dragged everywhere. It really was, this guy just bailed on a presidential debate because he humiliated himself the last time. And he just, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to you're going to be a free hour of airtime? Sure, I'll do that. And Chuck Todd, who's supposed to be the head of politics, the political organization, who would organize a political debate, said, I was kept out of the loop.
It's not my fault. Yep.
The political unit was kept out of the loop.
There are no parents to this ugly baby.
No.
None.
This was a decision made by...
No one on air, Rachel Maddow, all of them. None of them are taking any responsibility for this.
Well, this was a decision made by the executives.
Yes, right.
I'd like some names there, Chuck.
Yeah.
When asked his opinion about it, his only answer was, we all have bosses.
Yeah,
so I would like everyone listening to remember this the next time Chuck Todd hauls out some Hugh Hewitt-grade lunatic from the political graveyard and gives him the seat at MSNBC. It's a business.
Because they have a book that's published by Comcast, right?
Yeah, it's a business.
And NBC Universal has many publication outlets, including books. And so you have to have Ann Coulter on your show because she has a book that's going to make money for NBC Universal. Yeah.
So, and when you're waving your hands and your hair's on fire and you're saying, oh my God, Chuck Todd is so useless. Why don't they fire Chuck Todd? Chuck Todd is hired. He's an employee by someone above him who we won't name, but the executives make these decisions. Chuck Todd is doing the job Chuck Todd was hired to do by the goons above him. So the next time you get pissed off, as you rightly should, you might want to ask, who is Chuck Todd's boss? And why is this okay with them? Because that leads to some very interesting questions. As to quote The Wire, which I do from time to time, when you go after drug dealers, when you go after the drugs, you get drug dealers, pushers, and addicts. When you go after the money, you don't know where the fuck the money's going to go.
Right.
When you go after Chuck Todd bringing Hugh Hewitt on the air as a solitary event, you can say, well, Chuck Todd's an asshole and Hugh Hewitt's a scumbag and it's just terrible that this happens, and isn't that a shame? But when it happens over and over and over again, there's money involved.
Yeah, so and this is, again, I'm going to say it again, Sheldon Whitehouse said the same thing.
Yep.
It's like, if you see all of these things happening, connect the dots. What's happening is power in the shadows.
Yeah. Well, and this week, as MSNBC was gearing up for this event, which caused the longest pregnant pause between Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow in recorded history. This week, as they were gearing up to it, they devoted an entire segment to interviewing a blonde, camera-friendly, QAnon suburban mom. And all of her... And
who did this? Who interviewed her?
MSNBC.
Oh, my God.
A whole segment. And walking down the street, and she's on her porch, and she's pouring her heart out about the terrible conspiracies, and she's in her full-blown makeup, and she's wiping her eyes without touching her makeup because it's very, very sad that this thing has happened to her country. And she's a full-blown, blonde, attractive, suburban QAnon mom. And while they were doing that, I was sitting on the porch waiting patiently for them to interview middle-aged rural liberal guy who's been writing about the GOP's descent into madness for decades. And oddly, no one showed up at our house and asked me what I thought about
No
Donald
NBC
Trump.
news vans drove by our house to say, hey, wait a minute, we got to talk to this guy.
Because there's no money in that. There's no money in that.
Well, and this is why Donald Trump will not cross QAnon, because he canceled a fundraiser and QAnon gave him $1 million.
Yeah. Well, and because, he doesn't know anything about him, according to the town hall. Knows nothing about him, never heard of it, except he knows that they're very strongly against pedophilia. And that's a good thing. And who
wouldn't be?
Right. But
because Hillary Clinton and every Democrat is a blood-drinking pedophile. Right.
And he just sit there looking blank. This is a guy who will pick a war with Rosie O'Donnell on Twitter.
Right.
Who doesn't know anything about the Proud Boys or neo-Nazis or white supremacists or QAnon or anything else that's inconvenient. And you can just hear his depends filling up with his runny, drugged shit.
All right.
as he's sitting there going and sweating out all the drugs that are in his system.
I don't know why my tolerance for that right now is low. It's usually I'm a sweary person, but today it's just not. There's something about getting this close to the election that I'm just really, I don't know.
Well, you're the sound editor, so make it all go away.
Praying my way through.
Now, what the dueling town hall meetings did prove, if you were paying careful attention, they proved that presidential debates, as they're now conducted, are in fact completely useless.
Yeah.
Because Joe Biden's answers were thoughtful and careful and took more than 90 goddamn seconds. And presidential debates were, all right, climate change, 2 minutes, go. Okay, you have 90 minutes to rebut is ridiculous. You can't discuss anything of any importance in 2 minutes. It's not possible to do. And so the whole idea that you've geared at a democratic institution around this stupid ritual that gets you nowhere except doing press conferences.
Those kind of debates are good to test high schoolers' ability to organize their thoughts in front of a crowd.
And talk fast.
When they need to learn that skill of organizing their thoughts on the fly. And being able to speak quickly and cogently about an issue. For high school students, I think debate is great. Well, for presidential candidates where you really need to get into how and why you're thinking a certain way and get to know the person that you're going to vote for, they don't work.
Well, and speaking as a high school debater, long ago, the two teams of two people each, the introductory speech, the rebuttal speech, the comeback, then a period of rebuttals. The opening remarks from both teams are each speaker is given 8 full minutes.
Yeah, right.
And so it's not 2 minutes and you're done. It's, you have a speech that lasts 8 minutes.
Climate change, right?
The rebuttals, the short part of the debate, were 4 minutes long each.
Yeah.
So the idea that we're going to have, it's great training, but this isn't it. This has nothing to do with a debate. This is 2 minutes. Can you get in a zinger or a shot or call Marco Rubio Little Marco in 2 minutes? Well, yeah.
In 2 minutes. And then, by the way, we got to squeeze in a break here for some pharmaceutical commercials. Right. Let's do a news roundup.
All right. That's a lovely idea. Let's start with yesterday's Twitter outage, which was caused by Twitter getting drunk and falling down and being unavailable for about 7 hours. It was just over capacity. Everybody had trouble with Twitter yesterday. But Donald Trump tweeted, Twitter shuts down entire network to slow spread of negative Biden news. And he cites the Babylon Bee as his source. Wow, this has never been done in history. This includes this really bad interview last night. Why is Twitter doing this? Bringing more attention to Sleepy Joe and Big T. Here's the funny part. The Babylon Bee is a parody account.
It's a parody account.
But
and everyone started talking about low T.
Yeah. Yeah. And President...
Which, I get it. That's a joke. But anyway.
Well, yeah. President Super Spreader doesn't know and doesn't care. So.
Yep. Trump insisted that his NBC town hall run alongside Biden's. And in the end, Biden got 2.3 million more viewers, despite ABC having fewer affiliates than NBC. And also, ABC didn't run it on cable. Yeah.
Sean Spicer, where are you when you're needed? A Wisconsin domestic violence organization decided to post a Black Lives Matter signs around their place. The county then voted to strip it of $25,000 in funding. A board member resigned, and most of the 17 law enforcement agencies that work with the organization said they were cutting ties with them.
Because Black Lives Matter is anti-police,
it's
apparently.
Fucking appalling. It is fucking...
Which means police are anti-Black lives.
Yeah.
That's what you're telling us. Forbes is reporting that Donald Trump is probably not $400 million in debt. He's more like $1 billion in debt.
Yeah. Another 898,000 workers filed for unemployment benefits last week. After declining from a peak of about 7 million in March, claims jumped to the highest since August. The unemployment rate now stands at 7.9%, more than double its pre-pandemic level.
And the real level of woman unemployment is more like 31%.
Yeah, it's appalling.
Mitch McConnell won't bring the White House's proposed $1.8 trillion coronavirus stimulus package to the Senate floor. Trump, meanwhile, called for even more stimulus spending, saying, I would go higher, while complaining that Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin hasn't come home with the bacon.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
House Democrats, however, are seeking $2.2 trillion, calling the White House's latest proposal insufficient. Let me add that a report came out that certain airlines took the money and ran and were in a rush to lay people off before the check arrived so that they wouldn't have to use it for payroll. This is an argument, and it's so hard because of the 2-minute rule on television that Nancy Pelosi has to explain why she's voting against help for Americans in 2 minutes.
That's right.
And the details of these bills are, no, we're giving more money to the airlines. We're giving more money to billionaires. We're making sure that all of our friends are at the front of the line and screw Main Street, right? That's what this is about. And I'm so glad that she pushed back on Wolf Blitzer this week.
And pantsed him on air.
Speaking
of billionaires first, the New York Times reports that Donald Trump's aides privately warned Republican Party donors in February about the potential impact of the coronavirus at a time when Trump was publicly insisting the virus was very much under control in the United States. Those donors use that advanced knowledge to make investments and trade stock.
And short everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Trump's rich donors got all of the information that we didn't.
They're looting the country.
And 225,000 dead later, they, live on a yacht. As to the fake Hunter Biden story, which is so absurd, consists of unsourced emails found by a Trump supporter and laundered through Rudy Giuliani, Steve Bannon, and the New York Post, and the wet iMacs or Apple laptops that are wet and were delivered across country while drunk, and on and on. Anyway, it's all fizzling and falling apart. And Giuliani's revisions and denials keep getting weirder, even for Giuliani, even on Fox and Friends. Fox and Friends, I'm telling you, Ainsley Earhardt asking a hard question of Rudy Giuliani was something to behold this morning. The Washington Post says that Donald Trump shouldn't trust your information because it has been sullied by Russian agents. What do you say to that? Well, no one in the intelligence community told me that it was sullied by Russian agents, and I'm an American citizen.
Yeah.
And all the intelligence agencies, Rudy, think you're a Russian stooge.
Yeah. When your friends are all slowly backing away from you at the party, something bad is happening. It's going to happen to you. So they really don't want to. It is, for my money, of course, it was too late for them to back away from Republican madness.
And the question then becomes, is it too late for Donald Trump to back away from Rudy?
Yeah.
I think the answer is yes.
No. is it too late for Donald Trump to back away from Donald Trump?
Yeah, right.
Donald Trump in 2 years. I don't know who this Trump fellow was. He's a volunteer president.
Sounds like a strange guy.
Yeah,
sounds like a very, very strange guy.
And the real Donald Trump is this guy, not that guy. That guy, I don't know who that guy was. They had me doped up the whole time I was in the White House. Democrats had me doped up.
Had me doped up. Yeah, that's it.
U.S. coronavirus cases are, of course, rising again in 46 states. In Washington, D.C., the 7-day average of the new coronavirus cases is up 46.5% in the past month, while tests are up 28.9%. Nationwide, the 7-day average as of Tuesday was 51,027, the highest since August 16th. It's just going to go up and up and up, and we're heading indoors, so it's going to keep going up until they find a vaccine or until people get smart about using a Bronze Age tool called a piece of cloth to put on your face when you're around other people.
And don't go to bars and don't go to church, because those places are not ventilated enough for you to not catch the virus. Yeah. The federal prosecutor who was appointed by Attorney General William Barr to come up with some damn thing to prosecute Obama administration officials, all this unmasking business, they found no evidence of wrongdoing and did not issue a report.
Womp womp. What? Now, that was front page on Breitbart, right? That was a...
No.
No. Well, Drudge. Drudge must have run a big siren thing, right?
No.
No, there was nothing there. There's nothing there.
No.
Oh.
Hugh Hewitt had a whole hour about no.
He's, as he sits in front of the fireplace with his stuffed dead dog at his feet, talking about. Justice Department attorneys argued in court that President Superspreader's tweets that he had, quote, fully authorized the total declassification of all documents related to the Russian investigation are not actually considered a real declassification order.
And the judge, I just saw the tweet on that. The judge says Donald Trump has to explain himself.
Yeah. Was
he lying on Twitter, or are these declassified? And he has to admit one or the other to the federal judge.
Yeah.
And the Justice Department has to say to the judge, Donald Trump was lying.
Yes.
Or Donald Trump is telling the truth, and you have to release the entire Mueller report to the public.
I await that decision being buried under 15 other scandals when it actually
well, and I don't know, as of this, it's 3:12 Central Time right now as we're recording. We don't know if Donald Trump has released his quarterly spending report for his campaign yet.
No, we don't.
And that was due yesterday.
Well, dog ate it.
Everybody's saying it's under audit.
Yeah.
I want to release it, but it's under audit. In 2 weeks. I'm going to release it in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In a very short period of time.
Very, very short period of time. You'll be amazed. You'll be amazed by what's in there.
And he's going to release it strongly and powerfully. That's what you got to know.
Strongly and powerfully release it. Yeah. Yes. All right. Amy Coney Barrett largely refused to answer questions about how she might rule on a challenge to the Affordable Care Act, which, by the way, is emotional abuse, once again, to America's mothers, anyone with a pre-existing condition, and seniors. Yeah. It is emotional abuse to be put through this, to be told over and over again that your health care is hanging by a Republican's thumb once again. She also refused to say if she would recuse herself from any lawsuit about the presidential election or whether she would vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. Yeah. She absolutely will vote to overturn Roe v. Wade.
And when those
things happen, if she doesn't, then that is a cover up for the 80 new cases that the Heritage Foundation and Koch brothers want to have pass so they can pollute some more.
Yeah.
And you'll see these headline cases of Roe v. Wade and the Affordable Care Act, and everybody go, oh, look, she's so reasonable. Mm-hmm. Oh, look, it's 5-4 in favor. Look, Roberts decided he cared about the position of the court in history. And so this is why this is happening. And people are being more reasonable once they're on the court. Meanwhile, they're giving the Heritage Foundation absolutely everything they want on these smaller cases that nobody understands except Elie Mystal.
Yeah. Donald Trump continued his public criticism of Dr. Anthony Fauci, and there's more to this story, but you and I were talking in the car about what would it be like at the Fauci household come Halloween.
Yes, we were. You were very funny.
I just picture two big bowls, one with masks and one with raisins in it. One each, one and two. Don't take two masks. Go ahead, take two. Yeah, don't steal them all. Don't take them all. There's plenty. Well, there's not plenty because, we didn't actually stock up on this stuff. But masks and raisins. Take the raisins. They're good for you. They keep you regular. Masks because, don't be an idiot. Wear a mask.
Take a mask for your little sister. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Take a mask for your whole family. Is that you? Mom, come over here. First of all, why aren't you wearing a damn mask now? Oh, I get it. MAGA hat. Got that. All right. Turn around. I'll pretend I don't see you. And put one on anyway, okay? And kids, take 2 or 3 more. Split them up at home. Whatever you got to do.
We got raisins. We got masks.
Yeah, that's it. Everyone knows that house.
And Fauci, it turns out, is going to be clearing, except for one company. There's one company, for some reason, is out of the loop. But the other companies are all saying that Dr. Fauci will be the one determining when the trials are over. So that's comforting.
It is. I've stopped putting my faith in anybody above the level of my wife because, Robert Mueller was going to save us all. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, his boss is an asshole too. Oh, God. So, but Fauci has been around long enough and been credible long enough and been willing to step out and call his boss a know-nothing freak often enough that I'm willing to put my life in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yep.
Keep him safe and healthy, please.
Yes.
Each week we post to our Facebook page and website an internet kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's internet kitty is Tozer. Tozer is a beautiful gray rescue kitty who, of course, loves freshly poured cat food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve pet store perfection or dollar store dreck, your cat will sit on the kitchen floor and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh, my Lord, it's freshly poured. And I do want to thank the listener who sent us the musical notation on a sticker for that song. Thank you very much. You can visit Tozer at our Facebook page or website, and you can send your internet kitty or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. We are having a letter show on October 30th.
That's
which
correct.
is 2 Fridays from now.
That's correct.
2 Fridays from now, October 30th, is also Driftglass's 60th birthday. We heard from one listener who was concerned about us taxing the Postal Service with having a letter show before the election. I assure you, we'll be lucky to get between 12 and 20 letters from everyone. And Driftglass turns 60 only once a lifetime. So he doesn't like the attention, but we want to give everyone an opportunity to acknowledge this anniversary of his birth. And I do love you very much, Driftglass.
And this can be an AMAA thing. Ask me almost anything, and I will answer.
Okay.
And as a point of just in terms of correspondence, putting a comment in YouTube does not count as a letter.
Yep.
Send us email. Someone did that, and they sent us a letter, and that went into our queue, and it's part of the record, part of the history.
Right.
Secondly, something weird is happening on my blog where I'm supposed to get an email notification every time there's a comment that I need to monitor or delete or whatever. And about 20 of them have just flown past into the comments waiting administration without any email notification at all. So if I'm late getting back to you, it's because something is not notifying me for about half of the comments that come through my front door. So I apologize for that.
Okay. Be aware that if you write us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service, Go Postal Unions, letter on the air unless you say otherwise. We should add to our news list that Montana Governor Steve Bullock's lawsuit to restore the Postal Service.
Yep.
He won.
Yes, he did.
So
yes,
hashtag save the post office. Thank you, Steve Bullock, for saving the post office.
Yeah.
We do appreciate your work in filing that lawsuit.
Oh, and was it in Maine that post office employees reassembled a high-speed sorting machine out of spare parts?
They did. They put it back together.
They
MacGyvered
it. They MacGyvered that shit.
Postal Service employees rock. We love them.
They do.
All right. Don't forget our gourmet coffee guideline. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not charity. This is our job, and it's a labor of love. Approximately 1% of our listeners support this podcast with a contribution. You can too. See our website, proleftpod.com, for details. Both our PayPal and postal address information is there at proleftpod.com. I certainly hope there's going to be a new census next year. It got really fucked up by the Trump administration.
Swear language.
I know. Mm-hmm. Our angel nerd Tammy worked for the census, and she's back and has posted all of our past episodes that she missed while she was out working for the census back up at YouTube. So
and she is amazing. She's
amazing, and we love her.
Wonderful.
So
thank you, Tammy.
Thank you for that. So she's back. We're back on YouTube. Please share our show on social media, and thank you so much for doing that. Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, Bluegal, the Internet Kitties love the smell of pumpkin spice in the morning. It smells like victory.
Let's think about living. Let's think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the bopping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with a switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2019-2020, DGBG Productions.